It's probably the old frog in the pot of water example. You remember that one? You throw a frog in a pot of water, cold water at first, and you slowly bring the water to boil. The frog never realizes he's going to die. He never jumps out. Well, so goes the example, at least. I've never tried it, nor will I. But that's what it says. And I think that's exactly what's happening here in America. I don't see a lot of people up in arms about their loss of personal privacy and their loss of personal freedom. I don't. I think as a country, we should be outraged. We should be marching in the streets. We should be throwing out our politicians. We should be taking control again. And yet, I don't see that happening. Do you? I mean, in the last few months, we've seen outrageous abuses by the Obama administration against personal privacy, against personal freedom, and it's getting worse. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. That's what we're going to talk about in this video. See, internet, but this is a version here in TMP of taking it to the streets. So there's a lot going on in TMP all the time. Gun reviews, knife reviews, this review, that review, motorcycle adventures, backpacking, interviews, on and on the list goes, but I will make time to defend freedom. That's one of my goals here. And I think I have a lot of support from my subscribers in the Nutnfancy project. I'm going to start off with a hypothetical, and this will get your attention. Let's say in the months and years to come here in the United States of America, they outlaw gun ownership by citizens. Just flat out. It's a hypothetical. Bear with me. Single shots, pump action, semi-autos, whatever, all illegal in the hands of a private citizen. You, on the other end of this camera, say, whatever, I'm going to keep my guns and no one's taking them from me. By the way, I think most Americans are that way, just for the record. But we're just going to take average Joe citizen. That's what he says. Let's say he lives in Nevada. Okay, cool. So he goes, I'm going to be a conscientious objector, not giving up my guns. I'm going to go bury them. That's what he does. Goes out, finds his favorite place, maybe his friend's house, whatever, he buries them up. 6 months pass by, and they've instituted confiscation. Whatever. This is hypothetical, I know. We'll talk about the merits of if and when it'll happen. Future videos, and I've already talked a lot previously. Ding dong, hey, you got your guns? No, I don't. Never did. I sold them all, got rid of them. They fell overboard on the boat, whatever. I don't have them. They go, that's interesting. The law enforcement official, whoever it will be, probably federal, says me. They go, that's interesting because we have high resolution footage of you 6 months ago hiding these weapons up, taken from a drone at 18,000 feet. And we have the GPS coordinates. Here's the footage. And they show it to you. And here's your court order. You are hereby summoned to appear in court to explain yourself. Because you were given a grace period, didn't turn in your weapons, you hid them up, and we have solid evidence of you not complying with the law. It's for the greater good. How many times have we heard that? Bam. What now? Where did that footage come from? Well, I'm going to talk about that right here, right now in this video. And I'm going to talk about two other things along with it. So I've alluded already to the drone program in full swing in the United States of America, by the way. We'll talk about the IRS too, which I think are kind of like the Hitler brown shirts, to be blunt. And we'll talk about my term, databasing. You. That you are an enemy of the state. But first, you guys ever watch Star Trek? I know you have. You remember the original series? They were huge about the Prime Directive. Do you remember what that was? Of course you do. Don't interfere with alien civilizations. Leave them alone. We can go visit, we can interact, but don't change their course of history, their progression, whatever is in store for them. Let it happen. We can't change that. So goes, in the Star Trek series, the Prime Directive. Well, President Obama has a prime directive too, says me, but it's almost completely opposite from Star Trek's. Instead of not interfering, he is going to totally interfere with you. His prime directive is to gain total control over the individual. Make that individual fully reliant upon him and the government, and make him helpless in the process, very non-independent, non-thinking, obedient. That's Obama's prime directive. Now, you can make a case that presidents before him had the same directive, and I would not argue with you. But I think we're seeing it really accelerate, just like I've talked about in past videos, with Obama's lame duck second term. Here we go. His prime directive is to take control over you. And he is succeeding. With very little opposition. The frog in the water ain't doing nothing. Not speaking out, not croaking, nothing. Now, if we go back into 1930s Germany, and I think I used this example in perhaps Obama's New America or that video, King Obama. It still plays right here. And I'm going to draw this example because there are such stunning parallels to what we see now. In the early 1930s, there were two political factions, if my history serves me, and I think it does. Hitler had one, and then you had the brown shirts, the Nazi brown shirts. The German word for that, if I can say it, is Sturmabteilung. Sturmabteilung. They were famous for disrupting all their political opposition. They engaged in violence in the streets. Yes, they wore brown shirts. They were like leftover from a unit in World War I, so everyone wore them. And they go around beating everybody up who was in opposition to them. They beat the Jews. They kidnapped Jews in the middle of the night. Some were never seen again. They committed murders. They were brutal. The brown shirts. Now, there is some intrigue that took place during that period of history in Germany, where Hitler was in opposition to the brown shirts. He decided to take control over this emerging and what appeared to be a very powerful political faction, and he destroyed them in what was called the Blood Purge of 1934, or the Night of the Long Knives, again, if my history serves me. And they basically murdered a lot of the brown shirt leaders. And long story short, Hitler took power. But let's concentrate on what the brown shirts did in the early 1930s. They would engage in activities that would kill political opposition. Do we see that going on right now in 2013? Government entities moving to kill political opposition, contrary to the Constitution. Do we see that happening? Yes. I think if we knew how deep the corruption is in our government right now, we would be stunned. We have no idea what goes on behind closed doors, all the secret emails, off-record emails, communications, correspondences. I won't go into that, but I think it would be stunning. But we see that right now. And as I go down these three areas, the IRS, databasing, the drone program, you'll see this whole entity of brown shirt mentality taking place right here in the United States, right here. The ends justifies the means, says President Obama. And oftentimes they're going to throw out a smoke screen. They won't say, hey man, we're going after the conservatives. They won't say that. They're going to say, we're going to go after the terrorists. Now, never mind as I'll attempt to talk about, and I've got to cruise to this because there's so much to cover. They're going to try to reclassify you as an enemy to the state, as an enemy combatant. You, whoever, me. Why? Because we're in opposition to their political goals. Just like the enemies to the brown shirts were. You know, whoever they were. So they're going to come after us. They're doing it now. The ends justify the means, and they will strive to pacify the American people. Have no fear. Everything is in control. Nothing going on here. Nothing to see. Move along. That's what they're saying right now. It's double speak. And they'll make charges of extremism. Oh, dude, you know, the only reason, you're even making a video about this because you're an extremist. I'm not an extremist. I'm an American. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in personal freedom. I believe in personal liberty, privacy. So yeah, Well, because you believe in those things, you're an extremist. You're a paranoid, you know. Meanwhile, they're pacifying the masses. Nothing to see here. If you've seen some pictures of my motorcycle, there's a sticker on it that says, go back to sleep, your government is in control, something like that. That's what that addresses, that whole mentality of the government's in control. Freaking. Americans remain ambivalent. They're brainwashed through decades of public education. That's right, I said it. And a lot of them are not free thinkers. They think this is normal. And the frog's in there going, hey, this warm water rocks. I like it. It's a lot better than it was, a while back when it was really cold. They say. Meanwhile, this is going to be my term for this whole process. Obama is going to database you. His prime directive is to control you. Okay, and this isn't extremist. If you're watching this video, you go, oh, geez, this is so extreme. It's not. You will see that people who are making charges of this stuff going on a year ago, 2 years ago, who were classified as paranoid, I don't know, extremists, have been vindicated. Totally. What's going on? The eavesdropping, the surveillance that's occurred, that we have facts that it's occurred. It's not extremists. But to control you, they need to database you. And you need to really understand what this means. That means they're going to know everything about you. Okay, a lot of what we're going to talk about, the call registry and stuff, is all part of that. They're going to know who you called, when you called, how long do you talk to them, your associations, your voting records, group affiliations, your guns that you own, registry, ones you were stupid enough to register, product purchasing history, credit card activity, media preferences, social media participation. What? You watched a Nutnfancy video? Well, yeah, but it was that freaking one in the mountains, dude. Oh, okay. That one was okay, I guess. Driving history, medical history, lifestyle, health choices. On and on it goes. They're going to database you. They're going to have a great idea what you're about, and they will identify you as an enemy of the state if it's required. And the process is in its infancy, and it did not begin under Obama. Let me repeat that. It did not begin under Obama. It began under Bush with the Patriot Act, says me. So I'm laying some blame where it belongs. Bam! At the feet of President Bush Jr. George Jr. Whatever. It's almost irregardless of political parties. We're talking about what's really going on. Designating you as an enemy of the state. We'll talk about that in a second. First, how about that IRS? What do you think about that? Well, that's what happened at the IRS, Nutnfancy. I've been watching the news. What? Come on now. Well, first, let's go back to the brown shirt example. Hitler's Sturmabteilung. That's who the IRS is. They will be the enforcement arm of the political agenda of the Obama administration and subsequent administrations unless we do something about it. We the people, we vote. We participate in the legal political process to effect change. That's what I'm talking about. Something's got to change at the IRS. It's got to change. They're unelected, they're unaccountable, they're insulated, and they're rogue. They do whatever they want. Conservative groups were recently targeted. Not recently, it's been going on for years. Check that. Harassed at the direction of Obama. Hand-picked appointees carry out every directive. Example of this is Douglas Schumann, the IRS commissioner, visited Obama 157 times. What? In 2012. More than Secretary of State, Defense, or Attorney Generals combined. Now, why would he be going to the White House all the time? Well, because it's an off-the-record visit. Right? It's face-to-face. There's no email trail. And they talk about brown shirt stuff. That's what I say. Had to be that way. Look at what happened. Throughout the last few years, Tea Party, if you had the word Tea Party, Liberty, Patriot in the title of your organization, it brought scrutiny, harassment, audits. Tax-exempt status not granted. All in line with the administration's prime directive to take control over the populace. And these organizations represent opposition. So what do? We take our wooden sticks, we go to the streets, and we start beating some heads. It's an analogy of what the brown shirts did. You beat your political opposition so you have no more opposition so you can win. That's what the IRS has been doing. They've been beating heads. Intimidation. Why? They want to silence, destroy their critics. Go look up an article by a gal named Jennifer Stefano on Breitbart. By the way, I was on Breitbart years ago. Great dude. Mourn his passing. Fortunately, his news organization continues on, does great work. So on Breitbart, Jennifer posted an article about she was a part of one of these groups who was targeted by the IRS and what happened to her. And it will open your eyes. That's what I'm talking about. Groups were profiled and asked outrageous information. Hey, what's your religious viewpoints, personal thoughts, political positions, affiliated names and associations? Questions like, provide us with a list of all the candidates you have endorsed. Why do you care? You're the IRS. I'm just seeking tax-exempt status for my organization, so says these groups. Well, provide us with a list of all the things that are important to you, all your viewpoints, issues important to your organizations, and other ridiculous stuff. Why did this happen? Because Obama is pulling the strings. He puts people in charge that agree with his prime directive. Duh. And they pursue an agenda that supports the prime directive to take control over the populace and pretty much crush anybody who gets in the way. That's what we're seeing come to light about the IRS. Thank heavens there was a whistleblower, because we wouldn't have had hard evidence of this. And people have been talking about this for years. This isn't brand new. For years, and the mainstream media completely ignored them. A lot of these groups were crying foul. They're like, hey, this isn't right. Because we're a conservative group, we're a pro-freedom group, we're being targeted, harassed, not granted tax-exempt status. This is jacked up. What did the mainstream media do? Crickets. Nothing. It got so big now in 2013 they can't ignore it anymore. Now it's a big thing. Will it destroy Obama politically? No. It won't do anything. Nope, I'm sorry. He's Teflon. So sorry. And a lot of this was known in the 2012 elections. They sat on it. I'm talking mainstream media. They made sure it did not come to light because it would have meant Obama may have lost the election. That's interesting. Brown shirts. Yeah. The fact is the IRS is very political. If you got to have an IRS, wouldn't you want one that is like right in the middle of the road? They don't side one way or another. Well, we have found out through these last few months that the IRS has a distinct political agenda, and it is that of President Obama and the progressives. It is. It's really not debatable at this point, right? So here's an example right here. The IRS leaked donor information to the Mitt Romney campaign. Why? So his political enemies could profit from it, and they followed it up with a nice little audit to all these donors to harass and intimidate them. The message being, don't donate to any Republican candidate or Libertarian, whatever it may be. It was Mitt Romney in this case, this example. Don't donate to him. If you do, we're going to come after you. We're going to take to the streets in our brown shirts, we're going to get our sticks, and we're going to go beat your head. So says the IRS, and that's exactly what they've been doing. Lois Lerner, who is in charge of all these decisions, is now pleading the fifth. She is in silence. Why be silent if you're innocent? Because she's not innocent. Says a lot of news organizations. That's why. She doesn't want to incriminate herself. She's the one that targeted these groups. It gets worse, though. The IRS is set to be the enforcement arm of Obamacare. They are the enforcement arm of the political agenda of President Obama. And you will have to answer to them at least once a year. How's that? Well, your tax return. Hey, do you have a government approved health care plan? Well, I thought I did. Well, you don't. Here's your 40% tax, says the IRS. Yeah, that starts in 2014, next year. All part of that economy destroying death knell called Obamacare. The agency is set to expand by 15,000 agents and have a increase of $13 billion in their budget for enforcement of Obamacare. Giddy up. The IRS. So I ask you, as we finish talking about this part of your loss of personal freedom, privacy, is your lifestyle and health government approved? If not, get ready to pay, and pay dearly. The IRS needs to be overhauled or completely gotten rid of, says me. I would love that. Flat tax. Next, databasing. You. Why are they going to database me? I've got nothing to hide, Nutnfancy. Of course you don't, nor do I. I put it right here on camera. Just a normal dude like you are. But what's acceptable in 2013 may not be acceptable in 2018 or 2020. You follow? Go back to Germany again. What was acceptable in 1930 was not acceptable in 1939. Jewish-owned business comes to mind. Not acceptable. Why? Because you're a Jew. Well, so what? Well, that's no longer politically correct in this society. In fact, we're going to gas chamber you. Extreme example? Perhaps, but you get the point. That's why. So don't be naive. I've got nothing to hide. None of us do. To be dead honest, we don't. But it's a concept that's wrong. And that information, again, which is rather innocent nowadays, may not be so innocent, and it could be used against you. Go back to that first example I gave you. You, sir, are an enemy of the state. Well, how do you know that? Well, we've been tracking you and databasing you for the last 10 years. That's why. Well, that's not legal. Well, yes, it is. There's this thing called the Patriot Act, do you see? And Americans allowed that to be passed. They didn't really care about it, and it is huge, and it gives us all this power. We can do whatever we want under the Patriot Act. Grants sweeping powers of surveillance without a court order, mind you. Search and arrest, seizure of property, designation of enemy combatants. No, we're not talking overseas bad guys. We're talking about people right here in the U.S. They stamp on your forehead, enemy combatant, look out. Look out. There's a $2 billion storage facility in Bluffdale, Utah we've talked about here in TMP, and its sole purpose is to record everything. Emails, phone calls, texts, comments, everything. They have a huge storage capability. Now, the official story is it's only used for overseas assets. Really? You need something that big, guarded by a federal SWAT team for that? Maybe they do. I don't know. That article by Wired Magazine in 2012 was outstanding. Look it up online. It talks all about that Bluffdale facility and about what its capabilities are and why it really exists. It exists to database you. That's why it exists. It's no longer paranoia. It's the new America reality. Not paranoia. Oh my goodness. Like they're listening to me. Okay, they can hear me talk about soccer games. All right, cool. I'm with you. Because everything I talk about is boring too. But the concept remains. Is it right they database you? Everything you say, everything you do? No, it's not. And then we have the 120 million Verizon records handed over to the NSA, along with a lot of other carriers. T-Mobile, AT&T, probably all of them have been participating secretly for a long period of time. Not by their choice, says me. I mean, I don't have hard evidence of this, but they probably got a federal order handed over. So they're like, we don't have a choice, here we go. Maybe some cooperated more than others. I wouldn't be surprised at that either. Daily handovers are still occurring, according to my research. It's not stopped. It's still going on. Now, we're told that these are just call logs. Oh, who this person called? How long was the duration? I say it's a lot more than call logs. It's content, and if you think otherwise, you're very naive. Again, think about that Bluffdale facility. Do you need all that storage capability for simple text? Heck, text doesn't take any space at all to store. What takes a lot of space to store? Well, let me tell you, having done the Nutnfancy project for a lot of years now, okay, 5, I would say video takes a lot of space to store. Video does. Video imagery. because I go through a 4 terabyte hard drive every 2 months, depending on what's going on, maybe every 3 months. Yeah, that's a lot of storage capability. Now you multiply that by millions of people, photographic imagery, audio. Now you see what I'm talking about. It ain't just call logs. It's content, what's being said. And they have very sophisticated software programs that can analyze that content, because without such programs, it's useless. So what? You record 50 billion hours of content. How do you analyze it? Well, you have computing power. Amazing computing power and amazing software that can pick out keywords. They can look at this individual and that individual and show that they're associated. Why did they develop this? Well, the official story is for terrorism. So they want to find out the terrorist cells, and that's what this software is developed for. But the sad thing is, and I'll tell you this, freedom lovers around the country were saying, don't do it. When the Patriot Act came out and said, don't pass this because it's going to be abused. Now we're seeing exactly what these dudes were talking about. They knew what they're talking about. It's being abused and used on American citizens, innocent American citizens. But are they innocent? So says Obama. There's something there, and we'll find it, and the way we're going to find it is to database them. We'll find these associations. We'll find out who they call, what their media choices are, what their purchasing history is, and we will show piece by piece the evidence that shows them to be an enemy of the state. Are we there yet? No, we're not quite there yet. Remember, this process is in its infancy. But you wait. You give it 10 years. You go back at this video and look at it and go, oh my gosh, all that came true. All it came true. All major internet servers are data-based. Records of conversations, photos, emails, chats, duration and frequency of use. Commentary. The capture program being used by the NSA is called PRISM, apparently. And this whistleblower that just came out, I'm saying rock on, bro. If, the story may change and morph into this or that, and the details may change, but from what I know now, in June 2012, I'm glad we had a whistleblower like him to just blew the lid off this thing. Say, this is what's going on in the U.S. You people need to wake up, because it's going to get a lot worse. From what I understand now, subject to change, that's what this dude did. And we owe him a debt of gratitude, because he basically just threw his life away so he could get the message out. Microsoft, Yahoo, Google, YouTube, yeah, this one right here, FaceTube, made that one up, Facebook, AOL, Skype, Apple, Twitter, you name it. They're all handing over their records, says I, to NSA by federal order, probably under the auspices of the Patriot Act, which I hate, not necessary. That's all encompassing. All they have to do is take out a certain article of Patriot Act, write it up, issue it to Google, say, listen, we need all your emails. Hey, it's the law. If you don't, we're going to shut you down. Google goes, okay. And that's what's been going on for years. Watch your back. Old school communication. If what you're saying you want to protect. If you don't care, usually I don't care. I ain't got nothing to hide. Whatever. We're talking principle here. Principle. Yeah, sophisticated I talked about the software programs that can identify and show these associations, contacts, hierarchy, all that other stuff. Also, in addition to the call logs, getting the phone conversations, recording these conversations, we are having to deal with increasing photographic video surveillance everywhere you go. Now, some of my viewers are in Great Britain, Europe, other countries that already have this in spades. We're seeing it now in the U.S. And for the record, I am 100%, let's make that 110% opposed to it. Well, Nutnfancy, it serves the greater good. I hate those words. What do you mean? Well, there could be a robbery on the street corner and we can find who the criminal was. I says, at what cost? At what cost to freedom are we willing to do that? So let's say we solve 1% of the crimes with all this video surveillance. What happens with the other 99%? The databasing. Well, it's going to be used by the government to hammer someone. What are they going to hammer them on? Well, they pass some innocuous law. They'll use video surveillance. Hey, the guy's not in compliance with the law. Maybe it's a gun law. Hey, that guy had a gun. We tracked him. We have face recognition software. Boom. We know who he is. Since he's in the database, we know who he called. Boom. We picked him up in 1 hour. Like that. That's what I'm talking about. Well, I didn't see that coming. Of course you didn't. Frog in the water. Of course you didn't. Video cameras everywhere. Traffic, garages, streets, airports, stores, malls, car washes, buses, airplanes, airports. You are tracked right now. But here's the deal. Most of this tracking is from civilian, i.e. corporate, i.e. for-profit entities for asset protection. So when you go to a private parking garage, they're not tracking you for some government reason. They're tracking their asset, what happens on it, because maybe something happens on that property where someone could sue them and they could say, hey, we have video. It didn't go down that way. The guy did not slip and fall. That's why casinos have it. But here's the deal. As this databasing becomes more widespread and established and rooted in the American mindset, they're going to start calling upon these records, says me. They're going to say, hey, parking garage, we know you got these cameras. You're going to have to go ahead and interface those with the NSA. If you don't, here's your fine. Or we're shutting you down. So says the Patriot Act. It's all for the greater good, fighting terrorism. Parking garage guy goes, I don't want to do it. He goes, roger that. Here's your fine, jail time. Like that. Brown shirts. Databasing. So when all this stuff gets networked, look out. Well, Nutnfancy, I'm just going to go off the grid, dude. Good luck. Good luck. Can't use a credit card. Can't use a phone, especially a smartphone, which is basically a listening device, tracking device. Come on now. You got to go live in the woods and you can't talk to nobody. And even still, people know you're up there. It's hard to disappear. I got some big moth flying around here. It's probably going to dive bomb me here in a second. Good luck. Live in the wilderness, but that is the only way I know to go off the grid. It's easily said, not so easily done. There's also intrusions into your home. What do we have? The Xbox Kinect goes live with the internet every day. At least once every 24-hour cycle, it will report back to the data center. With what? What's it reporting back? Well, probably a lot of game stuff. Like, hey, what game did he play? Did he like it? Did he suck? Was he awesome? But apparently it also tracks eye movement to see which ads you're watching. Okay. Well, if they can track my eye movement, what else are they tracking in my house? Since I was stupid enough to hook up an Xbox with a database, online database. That's what I say. I say forget that. You know, if you're signing an agreement that allows a company like Xbox or something to monitor what you do in your home, I don't care on under what auspices, you are asking for abuse. What's to prevent a court order or a Patriot Act order, here you go, from NSA going, hey, all your Kinect customers, we want to find out everything that went on in that house because we suspect so-and-so of doing so-and-so. Bam. You signed on the dotted line. Yeah, I'm good with that. I want to play my video games. I don't care if people watch me. Okay, cool. Wow. You know what I do? I avoid all those networks. Kinect, Cloud, Siri. I guess every Siri search you do on your iPhone is databased with Apple. Searchable and subpoenable. OnStar in your vehicle? Forget it. Boycott all that stuff. I mean, we're still database a freaking moth. I'm going to kill this thing real quick. Oh, he's a fast bugger. Back on track. I stay away from all that stuff, dudes. Stay away from it. I mean, we're already online. I know that. That's track 2. Okay, whatever. But when you talk about the real greater good, this is a real greater good. So if you're going to be vocal, like I am in this video, and make a difference for freedom. Maybe influence a few people for freedom's sake, for personal privacy's sake. That's a good sacrifice, says me. What about vehicular databasing? What are you talking about? Well, all the new vehicles, like I've talked about in previous videos, have tracking devices in them. It's the law, the federal law. What do they track? How about your driving habits? How fast were you going? The top speed that you went on such and such day. And when you did it, where were you? Because it tracks GPS coordinates. Bam. Like that. How many passengers did you have with you? Does it know that stuff? It might. And the ability for law enforcement to shut down the vehicle system if you flee. Some models? Yeah. All? I don't know. I think vehicle database, and I'll call it, is bad. It's again loss of personal privacy. But I like OnStar. I like knowing that if I break down and I can call someone, well, use your freaking cell phone, dude. Use another human being to help you. Says me. Don't give up your personal privacy so easily. Don't be naive. Don't be the frog in the water. All for the greater good. For crying out loud. It's all for the greater good for the prime directive of Obama. Control over you, databasing you. Well, let's see. What do we have? Well, so far we have the IRS. They know everything about your health because you had to answer that. Oh, and by the way, in Obamacare, your doctor has to fill out a questionnaire, a federal questionnaire on you. Why? Because it's added to the database. Hey, this guy rides dirt bikes. Well, in 2018, we passed a law. If you ride dirt bikes, you're going to be assessed a 20% tax because that is called dangerous activity. Oh, that's interesting. I've got nothing to hide, Nutnfancy. Neither did the Jews. Neither did the Jews. Last but not least, I'm going to call this hellfire on your head. Remember that first example I gave you? Dude goes hiding his gun. He's presented with high resolution imagery of him hiding the gun, GPS coordinates. He's busted, used in a court of law, sent to jail. Done. Could that happen? Absolutely. Absolutely. You would be amazed at the technology of the drones. For instance, the Predators, which apparently Homeland Security is establishing an Air Force of, the Predator B. They are funded for and developing a UAV Air Force, Homeland Security. Why? Well, remember, they're always going to pacify the public. And the way they pacify the public is to go, hey, this is for safety of the country. You know, it's for anti-terrorism. These guys can come in and blow up our stuff, and so we're going to have drones everywhere watching everything, just so we make sure that these bad guys from overseas don't hurt us. Meanwhile, they use it against freedom lovers. So-and-so is declared an enemy combatant. Let's say we're under that same gun law. Let's say an individual, a whole family, they find out they did not turn in their guns. They will not turn in their guns. They're holed up in their house. Let's say it's a remote area. Well, according to, the rules of engagement of the Patriot Act and the people who are politically in charge, they say, well, these are enemy combatants and they are enemies to the state. Go ahead and launch on these guys via a drone. So they launch a Hellfire or other missile right through their front door. End of story, they die via drone. Could that happen? Oh yeah, it could happen. It happens in Afghanistan all the time. Via data link, drones are blowing up stuff all the time. Well, would it be used against a United States citizen? Well, who asked it? It was Ted Cruz, I think, who took Eric Holder to task and grilled him. And he said, would you use a drone against an American citizen? And Eric Holder says, well, it would require extraordinary circumstances. But he did not deny it. I repeat, he did not deny the future use of UAVs against Americans. Is this paranoid? No, it's fact. This means if you are, at a later date, designated via the database as an enemy to the administration, look out, you might just get a hellfire dropped on your head. Says me. But it's not always a weapon. In fact, the most danger that a drone presents is not dropping missiles. I think that would be few and far between. It will be expanding the database as a surveillance system. And in that, it is incredible. Because once again, you could have a drone orbiting over your head at 18,000 feet, recording your every move, and you would never see it. You would never hear it. It would be presented to the public as a very cost-effective, life-saving way to fight terrorism. It's an intelligence gathering vehicle, and it rocks. It's very good at that. Forget about satellites. If you've been worried about satellites, you need to worry about drones, which in 10 years will probably be covering our skies, recording your every movement. Database. And you have your own personal database with a number. They know who you are. Joe Citizen. On this date, he was at these GPS coordinates. That's what he did. Are we there yet? No, we're not there yet. We are not there yet. I'm telling you, again, this is in its infancy, but this is where we're going. In order to get to that area, they have to acclimate American citizens to drones, to seeing them, to accept them as a normal way of life. And one way they're doing that right now is establishing testing centers, mostly in the United States, in the Western U.S. Hey, we're just testing these things, guys. Chill, don't worry about it. So 5 years of testing, people see these things coming and going, droning all over. Lo and behold, the frog in the water goes, whatever. A couple degrees warmer, no big deal. UAVs all along will be sold as cost-effective, a way to save money and to save lives. Just like they have been in the military. And they are that. UAVs are very effective in a military perspective. Why send a jet where a UAV can go? Under the umbrella of war on terror, this will be sold. Obama now says drones would be used against terrorists who pose a continuing and imminent threat. He no longer mentions Al-Qaeda in that sentence anymore, meaning he's expanded it to domestic enemies. Just saying. Countermeasures will no doubt crop up. Company in Oregon, I think, is already developing some. Will they be provided to civilians? I don't know. There'll always be a way to fight this stuff. I'm just telling you how it's going to play down. I really think it's going to go that way. Predators are very advanced, and that's just a Predator B or whatever the freak it is. I didn't really study it, but they're going to get more advanced. They're going to get smaller, quieter, more efficient. They're already night vision capable. They're already thermal capable. They can look through walls. They can see heat signatures in your house. They can detect magnetic anomalies. Burying metal. Didn't know that, did you? They can track cell phone signals. Some Patriot states like Texas are passing anti-UAV laws, and I say, awesome. They pass HB 912, and I think it limits the scope of UAV existence in the great state of Texas, the Republic of Texas. Hellfire in your head? Could it happen? Probably unlikely, to be truthful, but the surveillance and the contribution to your personal databasing that these drones can present and their feed will go to, look out. So what's this all about, Nutnfancy? It's about watching your back, is what it's about. You are being databased, and it's part of Obama's prime directive. To control you, he has to know everything about you. Again, what do you purchase? What do you watch? What are your media sources? What are your entertainment sources? How fast do you drive? What kind of cars do you have? What kind of guns do you have? Is he armed? Does he have alternate places where he goes? What are his political affiliations? Does he belong to this group, that group? And they will pin you down and know what you're all about. Why? Because then they can control you. And they have leverage against you if this or that law passes in the future. How do we stop this? Well, I'll tell you what, we need more Ted Cruzes. We need more Rand Pauls. We need more Mike Lees. That's how we stop it. We need more conservative voices, freedom-loving voices from whatever political party, if the truth is told, that rails against this loss of privacy, of freedom, and takes a stand against it and says no, and doesn't buy off on the freaking terrorism argument. Well, for the greater good, we need this all for terrorism. Oh, really? Well, apparently all our intelligence has not stopped a single terrorist attack, despite the billions of dollars spent. 9/11, on and on. The Boston bombings recently. Did any of that stop that? No. So I asked this audience, at what cost does this happen? Well, it happens at the cost of you losing everything. Losing everything. The ability to function as a private and free individual, to me, is everything. If you're controlled, tracked, monitored, you have no privacy, then the Constitution of the United States is shredded. It is trampled. And yes, President Obama and his clones want to get rid of the Constitution. It stands in their way. I've said that before in other videos. It's an obstacle. They hate it. This isn't really a specific call to action. I mean, if you want to write a letter, write a letter to your congressman, congresswoman. I'm all for that. I really, really am. But the problem is big. It's deep-rooted. And a lot of it has to do with how Americans as a whole think. They are that frog in the water. They're ambivalent. Look at the polls going on right now in June 2013. Well, whatever. They're listening to us. I got nothing to hide. I got a drone flying over my head. Whatever. I'm at the soccer game. Have fun. The concept, though, bro. You're saying that now in 2013. Soccer's illegal in 2020. And now what do you say? I'm making that example up, but you get the point. Don't be naive. We need some freedom voices right now in the political process. Right now, in the next primaries that are coming out, we need some hard-charging, non-compromising freedom voices that go to the mat. They go for one term, I've said this before, and say, no holds barred, this is what I stand for. If you're a freedom-loving American, I need your vote. If you're not, sorry, I'm still going to the hoop. Will they win? I don't know. I don't know. But this has got to be derailed because it's going to get worse and worse as you are data-based, tracked, and controlled under the Obama Prime Directive. I would like nothing better for me being wrong about all of this, but I don't think I am. Thanks for watching.